Hey geeks, so kind of an impromptu video here. I was getting ready to box up some recent comics that I showed in previous videos. These are not from Whatnot. These are part of the Holiday Comics Bender buying spree. And reading through those, so I set aside some issues that I thought were kind of standouts. In my last video, I had referenced a comic book called Mega City 909. And this is the issue that I bought kind of on a whim. Never heard of it, never saw it before. Issue number 8, 8 of an 8-issue series. I bought it because I thought it was a computer-generated comic book. And I apologize, I'm doing this video as a handheld just because I wasn't planning on making a video, and then I decided, well, before I put these into the vaults, yeah, let me go ahead and do a little bit of a deeper dive into them. So anyway, I recall opening this comic up and looking into it, and then I thought to myself, this has got to be like computer-generated artwork. The interesting thing about issue 8 is it's not even the best issue of this series. It's the final issue. I wish there was a sequel. But it's not the best issue. Although it does have a relatively satisfying ending. So, thumbing through it, I was like, well, this kind of anime, sort of semi-manga type stuff isn't really always my bag, but, you know, I kind of got the gist of it, like it was kind of cyberpunk / horror. So I decided, you know, for $1 or maybe $1.25, I'd give it a shot. So I bought it and I read it, and I was very intrigued by it. I liked it. It had some very interesting concepts in it, some great character design. The artist, Kano Kang and Zach Sue. So as far as I can tell from my research, Kano is a conceptual artist. I don't know if he started in comics first and then went into concept art, or it was vice versa. But I do know that he does some concept art, I think, on Reddit now. And I don't know much about Zach Sue. But they basically wrote the book as well. And and the label is DDP, or Devil's Due Comics, but it's Ice Studios or Ice Presents. As far as I can tell, all of these are defunct now. They don't currently publish comics. And this came out, I think, in the 2005. So so thumbing through it, you know, I was like, okay, let's see what we got here. We've got some great designs on these kind of wraith-like creatures. And then, you know, some great design on, like, these demons. Then you've got, you know, some military helicopter action. This is the main bad dude. He's basically like, you know, Satan on Earth. It's a crazy story that gets up to this point in the other issues. You know, but they're essentially like this, you know, ultra-military, super efficient strike force that specialize in basically taking on monsters and demons of this ilk. And I just thought it was, you know, pretty well designed, pretty well written. I thought there were some interesting, you know, like I said, some interesting concepts with the characters. And I thought for sure that it was, you know, just like computer generated, but it's not. These are pencils. The artwork is initially done in pencil. Let's see, in fact, there may be some drafts. Definitely some of the concept art for the characters is in here. But yeah, they're initially done in pencil. I've seen in other issues, because I went back and I read the other 7 issues online. I read them on readcomiconline.com. And So, there's an idea of the pencils. So, yeah, the guy pencils them first. And then I don't know if the coloring is digital coloring. They were advertising these as painted comics. And I'm on the fence about whether this is digital coloring or not, or if it's actual paint that was applied over the inks, of the pencils. And I haven't been able to find enough research to know for sure, but I like the way it looks. They're a little, a little light, I think, in some areas on facial expressions, but in other areas they do a fine job of it. So it does have this kind of video game look to it, which I think is what they were going for. Unfortunately, you don't see much of the actual mega city in this issue, but trust me, it's there. So there you can see some of the mega city in the background. But yeah, it's an interesting comic, and it's not as superficial as I thought it would be, as one would maybe think when you see a cover like that. So yeah, no, I'm gonna get all physical copies of this eventually. I think you can find them for like $2.95 a piece on mycomicshop.com. But if I find them out in the wild, going through the bins for $1 or $1.25, I'll definitely snag them. I think it's a beautiful comic book. I think it's just a very well designed, kind of unique and novel, kind of a novel aesthetic to it. It certainly was a lot more entertaining than I can tell you than a lot of DC and Marvel stuff that came out in that period of time, and especially in the current period of time. Speaking of DC, Un-American Gladiators from Lobo. This is issue number 1. This is just like... I mean, Lobo is just insane anyway. But this is just like gonzo entertaining comic. So what was the published date on this? 1993. So I was out of the game by then. You got Cam Kennedy on art, Alan Grant and John Wagner. So yeah, I just think all in all, it was just an entertaining first issue of this 4-issue miniseries. Basically, Lobo gets captured, and they're going to put him into this cosmic gladiatorial arena, and he just kind of only pretends to get captured because he actually does want to go into the arena and basically kill everyone and win. So, but along the way, there's just plenty of humor in the book. Just over the top, crazy character design. This, this punch is classic. This is kind of like a Star Wars bar scene. He just kind of goes in there. He's looking to get a drink. Somebody messes with them, and they soon regret it. So it was just a fun comic that kind of makes fun of all of the a little bit of Frank Miller in that, I think. But yeah, I think it's pretty much what you want, I think, with a Lobo comic. And the artwork is very good. I'm not familiar with this artist, but having read it, it definitely made me want to get the other 3 issues and see how it ends, which I have a feeling the way it ends is, I mean, basically everyone that Lobo meets in this comic book, he just smashes them into oblivion. Which I think is, that's kind of his thing. Yeah, so there's a good ad for this, for the Spectre. So that was entertaining. I don't know if Lobo comics are like this present day, but in the 90s you could get away with this. Deathlock. So this is some of that Marvel tech that I've been collecting from the 90s. Joe Casey, Leo Manco, Issue number 3, pretty cool cover. The artwork is just stellar in this. The look and feel of this book is definitely where it needs to be for a Deathlok comic. It's just a great job. Even the coloring, fantastic. The lettering, you know, it's just, compared to the present day Deathlok comics that are being put out by, I'm not even going to say Marvel, that are being put out by Disney. This is a masterpiece. This is just an absolute masterpiece compared to present day comic making. And I was going to show a couple of the other Deathloks I recently picked up that were from the recent time frame. One of them as early as 2019. I think another from 2017, I think. Kind of, you know, promoting Deathlok because he was appearing in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, which you know, was a decent show. I watched most seasons of that show. But the comics were so lame. Just absolutely, just, I don't know. I found them to be so moribund and boring compared to something like this that you behold before your eyes that I'm probably going to make a video about them. This stuff needs to be called out. But these are ads, but this needs to be celebrated. It's just, I'd really love to know what this guy's process is. So much of it looks like there's kind of like this weird photocopy effect to it. You know, there's true lived-in grit in the look and feel of it, which is what you want with cyberpunk. And the weaponry. You know, the imagination that went into designing the technology in this book, you know, and this is, you know, this is early 90s. I think we were more hardware-centric back then in our design aesthetics when cyberpunk was really starting to take off, you know, and so, of course, Deathlok was right up that alley. And, you know, obviously it was before its time. I mean, the Deathlok comics in the 70s were so far, you know, 20 years ahead of their time in terms of cyberpunk. So, yeah, and really this whole run of Deathlok, this Marvel Tech, I don't know how many issues this went, but I'm in the process of picking up all of them. I think it went maybe 12 or 13 issues. New Gods Special. When I saw this and I saw Simonson on the cover, I was like, oh, is this one of the ones that Simonson drew like he did with that Orion series that he did? But it is not. It is Louise Simonson. Although she's not credited here, but I saw her name. I mean, it's on the cover. I think she appears somewhere else in the book. But this also, I'm always like, okay, it's not Kirby. You know, what's it going to be like? Is it going to be pretty good? You know, some of the New God stuff's kind of hit or miss. You know, but this turned out to be pretty good. I really enjoyed it. You know, kind of delved into Orion's relationship, or at least sort of like his heritage relationship with Darkseid, and so he's kind of sort of a genetic propensity to be very angry and hateful. and in this one, he has to fight Kalibak, his brother. And, Light Ray is there to help. And he just a great job of designing Kalibak, kind of showing you just how big and tough he is. But, of course, Orion just starts pounding the pounding the sand out of him. Oh, yeah, and Bug is in it, too. Basically, I think what they do is they show up on Apocalypse to rescue some of Bug's compatriots or something like that, if I remember it correctly. It's been a few weeks since I read it. But, yeah, Kalibak's got this new super hammer that he thinks he can use on Orion, and Orion's like, nah, we're not having none of that. So, you know, it's action from beginning to end. But there's enough of a story in there too. And again, another good punch. Always have a good punch in your comics. A good close-up punch. You can't go wrong with that. There's another good punch, but not as good as the other one. And not as good as the Lobo ones, but really no one can punch like Lobo. You can't shove your entire wrist into someone else's mouth. Is a good ad for Dark Knight's Metal. I haven't read this. I gotta read this Dark Knight's Metal and Death Metal at some point. Good colors in this too. Even though I don't like digital coloring, but this is done well enough to almost make me forget that it's digital coloring, and it's dedicated to Jack Kirby, who will forever remain the king. Then there is this follow-up story in it. Also pretty good artwork. Who is this? Yeah. Oh, writing and drawing by Walter Simonson. Okay, so I was incorrect. It's not Louise, but it is Walter. Oh, yeah. Tale of Young Orion. Yeah. So, you know, it's a decent backup feature. The value proposition here is Simonson's artwork, though. The story's relatively simple. It's basically like a young Orion story. Oh, here's that god-awful Mr. Miracle by Tom King. Yeah, it's just a few pages long. But anything Simonson, yeah, it's pretty good. I love this. Kirby's the name and comics is my game. I remember when I used to see these in the DC Comics. In the issues of, like, New Gods. You know, and Mr. Miracle, when Mr. Miracle was good before they gave it to Tom King. So they should make a poster of this. And then you got this Jack Kirby story inked by Coletta, Vinnie Coletta. And of course you can't, you know, the Kirby art is unmistakable. And this is not something I had not read this before. I'd not seen it. I assume it appeared in one of the New Gods books. Probably it was a backup in the Forever People or maybe Mr. Miracle. Look at that horse. But basically Lonar tries to tame this horse. This war horse. Down on the plains of New Genesis. There's another take on Kalibak. Look at that horse, man. Only Kirby. Only Kirby can do it. So yeah, this issue is basically a homage to Kirby. You got this nice little you know, afterword by Mark Evanier about working with Kirby on the New Gods. And then they play up this Mr. Miracle. But the less said about that, the better. Dick Tracy Forever, IDW issue number 1. I didn't expect much for this comic, and man, it was good. The cartooning in this book, the dialogue, the cartooning, the artwork, you know, the coloring. I mean, it's a fun read. The banter between him and his girlfriend, sort of the mystery that it sets up for forthcoming issues, just, you know, the noir, the 50s noir look and feel to it. But it's still kind of got that Dick Tracy, you know, cartoony look, so that it doesn't take itself super seriously. I was really impressed by this book. It was a fun read, and it made me want to go and get more of these. I think I've got, when I bought these, I think there were a couple of others, maybe 3 or 4 that I was able to get. So, I don't know how long this run went with DC, but man, it was good. I think this, and then there's like this segue of like this future Dick Tracy in the future, like he gets knocked unconscious, and and it's like, okay, you want to see more of that world, so they're kind of setting it up, and yeah, it was just, it was just good. It's just good. Love these upper perspectives, and this kind of silhouette, but you've got like, the shadow from the blinds coming through, which, is a noir, must have. You must have the shade from the blinds coming through. You got the nice, the bright yellow overcoat and the hat. You got all the classic villains, most of the classic villains. You got a great, next month cover. Makes you want to get the next issue. You have a maze in the shape of Dick Tracy. It's a gallery of the variant covers. Yeah, this was a cool comic. It's relatively recent too, because I think these year 5s for Star Trek are still coming out. Who was the did I say DC? DC did some Dick Tracy for a while, but yeah, this is the IDW. So when did this come out? I don't see. Oh yeah, April of 2019. So yeah, relatively recent. Relatively recent. So that's all I've got for this video. I just wanted to show those off. I like I said, I took those out because I found them to be of the comics that I read. I thought these were the most entertaining, and I'm going to continue to go out and collect these and try to finish out whatever the runs are on each of them, because they got me hooked. And that's why I like buying number 1s. I mean, if you look at this, so this is the last issue of Mega City 909. First of Lobo, Un-American Gladiators. Number 3 of that Deathlock. I've actually read this Deathlock story in a trade paperback, but it's great to have the individual issues. The art looks so much better. And then, yeah, number 1. But this is a one-shot, but any new gods is appreciated in this number 1 on Dick Tracy. So hope you enjoyed taking a look at these as much as I enjoyed reading them. Until the next one, thanks for watching, and stay geek.